Hello everyone. Welcome to our another Tech Talk session. I'm Sargam from Tech Jobs Fair, and we are today have a special guest, Mr. André Casal, for our today's Tech Talk session. He is on software engineering side. He is teacher, college student in computer science. He helps graduates and software engineers find jobs, trains software engineers and teams in full stack web development, and create applications and courses. On the self-development side, he is a personal strategist and tactician. He also writes, speaks, and facilitates workshops on both software engineering and self-development. Today, we will be talking about how you can get the right job fast. So let's welcome Andre. Hi, Andre. How are you doing?
Hey guys, hey Sargam. Thank you guys for having me. How's everyone doing? Can we? I'm not sure if we will be able to see the comments there, but if
yes, we once we will get comments definitely from our viewer side. So yes, I would like to include here if you guys have any questions that you would like to include in our
exactly.
session. So please drop your comments, and we will definitely include in our session.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about how to find the right job fast. Let's talk about some how the process works. This is useful for both people who are just out of college and it's the first time they're looking for a job and it's kind of a nebulous process. So I hope to shed some light there, and also to kind of reframe some common dysfunctional beliefs that some people might have. And I think it's going to be useful to really look at how job seeking really works, and then have the right mindset to go into it. So guys, please feel free to interrupt me. I'll try and see the comments, or every now and then take a look at the comments just to see if there's any questions. If not, if I'm not able to do that, because I only have one screen, so I'll be probably showing the presentation on full screen. We'll do all the questions and answers at the end of the presentation.
Yes.
But let's see how that goes. Feel free to drop questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. All right.
Yes,
Shall
definitely,
we
Andre. Yeah.
start talking about
Yes.
this?
So, Andre, can you please tell us a bit more about you and how you are helping software engineers in their career growth, before starting the presentation? And bit more,
Sure.
we go deep. Yeah.
Actually, I was going to start the presentation by talking a little bit about myself, but we can do that right now. That's fine.
Okay.
So I've been an entrepreneur and software engineer for about 16 years now. I've done so when in the beginning of my career, and this is something I still do. I do consulting for companies, mentoring for software engineers, and tutoring for college students, mainly in computer science. I've done some freelancing, then I stopped freelancing and started doing more, getting a little bit more into the entrepreneurship world. I've done a lot of projects over my career, and I'm really passionate about helping people to grow, and in both areas of tech and also self-development. So I work in these two areas. So I look forward to providing you guys some value through this process. Shall we start?
Yes, definitely, and we can see there are so many people are giving their messages. Hi, hello everyone, and yes, definitely, I can see there are some questions as well. And as Andre also mentioned, like we will cover these questions while wrapping up the session in the end. So definitely feel free to ask your questions from your side. Yeah, Andre.
Yeah, I already see some questions that I think I'm going to cover during the presentation. But
Okay.
so let's start the presentation, and then
Sure.
I'll look at the questions during the Q&A. Yeah?
Okay.
Shall we start?
All right. Yes, definitely.
All right.
So you can start your presentation, and I will be at the back stage, right? So
okay.
the whole stage will be yours.
All right. So I'll start sharing my screen, and I'll go full screen with the presentation here. And let's start talking about this. Sargam, please let me know if you can see my screen correctly.
Yes, I can see.
All right, so I already talked a little bit about myself, so let's move on from there. So let's I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about the kind of the topics we're going to discuss right now. So 7 topics, right? So let's talk about how to profile yourself. This means trying to take stock of the kind of worker that you are. Then we're going to do pretty much the same thing for the kind of company that you are potentially looking for work in, right? And then the third step is just trying to integrate those two things and making them coherent, right? So we'll get into that in detail. The first two items, the profiling yourself and profiling the company you'd like to work in, are going to be useful for the fourth step, where you just take all that all that information and you build your CV if you don't have one. I'm going to provide a few tips, or like the puzzle pieces of a good CV, just to make sure you have everything covered. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how job seeking actually works, right? Because I think there's quite a few misunderstandings and dysfunctional beliefs here, and we're going to try and give you maybe a more accurate view of how it really works, and then some advice on how to find job offers. And then lastly, because this is the this is a tech community, how to practice how to practice technical interviews, how to find resources to do that. All right, so hopefully this track makes sense to you. So let's dive into it, and let's start by profiling yourself. So this is pretty standard, right? So there's a few things here I want to dig a little bit deeper into, because these are things that usually people don't take into account, but most of it is standard. So this is just about taking stock, right? So just about making a list of the things that you need in order to follow through on the next steps. So having a good photo that is credible and presentable, for example. So, avoid selfies if you can. So you don't have to have a super professional photo, but, and you can always ask for advice to your, friends and family and colleagues, and ask them, does this look, um, does this not look unprofessional? That's what you need to go for, right? Doesn't have to be the absolute best picture, but at least credible and presentable. Then first and last name, birth name, nationality. I'm just going to go through these quickly because these are pretty standard. Qualifications and credibility, of course, your education. Sometimes people fail, and I've seen this happen, to put the language fluency. Make sure if you, whatever languages you speak, make sure you put them there, but also how fluent you are in those languages. This is important because if you're able to speak French, for example, then this is a skill that might be extremely useful for a potential company, right? So make sure you put that there, but also don't put, like, if you can speak French, but you can't have a fluent conversation, you can just understand, then put it there, but also say that it's not at the level of having a full conversation, right? And if you're unsure of how to convey this, you have the 6 levels of the 6 European levels: A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. And these pertain, so A1 is the most basic understanding, where you can slowly read and very slowly understand someone. And then C2 would be the highest level of fluency, and many words in that language. Then accomplishments, if you have some accomplishments, usually if you're a graduate just out of college, don't worry about this because you're just starting your career, so not many accomplishments, that's fine. And then something that usually people forget to put, or maybe they don't think about it that much, is testimonials. even if you're a graduate student just out of college, people have thoughts about you, right? So it's important, and even more so, of course, if you already have some experience in a company. And it's really important to have testimonials from your previous colleagues, your previous boss, from colleagues from even from college, right? The point here is just to provide some social proof. If you can get some testimonials from people who have worked with you, and this can also include colleagues in college, that's fine. This is very important, right? And within testimonials, don't sell it short. What I mean by this is if you do insert testimonials in your CV, and you should, make sure you have, and of course ask for permission, but make sure you have their photos, their names, their titles, if they work in a company, the company they work in, and then of course the testimonial text, right? So this is very useful because it tells potential interviewers that, look, people like me, people like working with me, they say I'm reliable, right? Or whatever they say, this is very useful. Then of course the tech stack. So the languages you know how to program and the frameworks you use, the tooling like Git and GitHub and styled components and React and Redux or Angular and Vue, all of these tools, language frameworks and tools, make sure you add that, but also make sure you add how fluent you are with these tools, right? This is important because, for example, I know how to program in React, Angular, Vue, and Svelte, but I'm by very far much better in React than any of the other ones. And this, if I was applying for a job, it's important for my interviewer to understand that I'm really good at React. I can handle the other ones, but I'm not the best at it, right? And well, in my personal case, I actually don't want to use them. I prefer React. And then of course the salary expectation. Don't be too hard on yourself, or like if you just put some number there, right? Because the third step is actually making this coherent with reality. We're going to get there, but at least have some sort of expectation for your salary. All right, so we're taking stock here, right? So let's gather all this information and let's move on to taking stock for your company, right? So this is important to think about. If you've never thought about this, give this some thought. What kind of company would you like to work in? Do you want to work in a startup where, on the one hand, you have the opportunity to build something from scratch, which is very exciting, but on the other hand, it might be extremely stressful, right? What kind of person are you? What do you identify with? Would you like to work in a startup environment where there is very little structure usually? Or would you prefer to start your career, or if it's not the start of your career, would you prefer that your next step is actually working in an established company where they already have support for you? There is structure. You will have colleagues helping you to solve problems, right? You will be so on the startup side, you have to be a little bit more a jack of all trades, right? Because you have to do a lot of stuff. On the established company side, you have more structure, right? You have uh, more well-defined roles within the company, right? And if it's an established company, for the most part, you're probably going to be fulfilling someone else's shoes, right? So this is good in the sense that it's very clear the expectations for your job, but it might not be interesting to you because you might want a little bit more freedom. That's also valid. My point is, don't leave this to chance. Make sure you give this some thought, right? And then also give some thought to company mission and values. Is it important to you what they're doing? Like, is it important to you that they work in sustainability, for example? Or is it totally okay for you that they are, let's say, an oil company? Um, so um, it's important to understand that even though sustainability is, of course, a good value to have, we still do need oil companies. If oil companies disappeared tomorrow, our planet would collapse, right? So what kind of understanding do you have about this, and what kind of values would you want in a company, right? Are they an oil company trying to transition into sustainability? Are they not an oil company at all? What are they doing? Do you identify with that, right? And then what kind of training do they offer? Do you want them to offer hard skills training, like usually tech? Do you want them to offer soft skills training? Usually communication, self-awareness, how to talk, how to have a good environment with the client, with the colleagues, and how to communicate well with the clients. Is this important to you? Do they have team building events? Do they offer mental health support? Something that I've seen grow a lot in recent companies. They offer psychologists for free. Like if you want to use a psychologist, you can. And I think that's really amazing having that care for the employees. I think that's really nice. Do you want it to be time based or goal based? So some companies ask you to work 8 hours a day. That's it, right? Whatever you do, 8 hours a day. Some other companies tell you, we don't really care, especially if it's remote. We don't really care. This you have this goal. As soon as you reach it, you're golden. You can, if you reach it in 2 hours, we don't care. If you reach it in 8 hours or 10 hours, we also don't care. So as long as you reach the goal, you're good to go. So this is also important, right? What kind of um, you know kind of company would you like to work in? Okay, just gonna quickly go through a few more. So remote versus office versus hybrid, where you can do remote sometimes, office sometimes. Is pair programming important to you? Pair programming, if you don't know what it is when you work in a company and you always, or at least sometimes, program in a pair, right? So one of the programmers will be what's called the driver, which is the one who has the hands in the keyboard and actually writing the code. And the other one will be I think it's called the co-pilot. It doesn't really matter what it's called. The point is that one is going to be doing the programming, and the other one will be overlooking or giving advice and giving directions. Usually, the one who's giving directions is the one who knows more about the project, or is a more senior developer. And this is a really great way of building extremely high quality software, but also of learning for both the driver and the co-pilot. So a really interesting practice that might be important to you. I can tell you that if I was looking for a job, pair programming would be on the top of my list. So two last things. So would you like to work for a company that does consulting, which means it's actually a company that works for other companies doing whatever they require of them? Or would you want to work on a product? And this is an important question because this changes the environment you'll be working in. So in a consulting company, it's common for you to work for a company's client, and then when that project is done, you just work for another company's client. When that project is done, you jump to another company's client. So you're always changing teams, right? And this is an important consideration. If they're building their own product, this doesn't happen. You're pretty much always working with the same team, right? And that creates more, more trust, and usually it's it's the recipe for a better environment. But on the other hand, you might have more growth opportunities in the consulting firm. So just take that into account. And lastly, do you want to work independently on or in a team? This can also happen. Working independently is usually not part of companies who build their own products, is usually part of consulting companies, right? So it may happen that if you work for a consulting company, you're the only person in that project. right? You're the only one building the back end or the front end or wherever you're building. And then with companies that build their own things, you're usually going to be part of the team. All right, so this is my point here is take stock, right? Think about the kind of company you'd like to work in. And then the goal here is to integrate them, right? So take your profile, take your company profile and make them coherent. The goal is for you to achieve coherency in your life for these three things: who you are as a person and as a worker, what you believe in, and what you are or will be doing. I think this is very important. So for example, if sustainability is important to you, and you're working for a company that has absolutely no regard for that, you're probably not going to be very happy there. So I think giving this some thought is going to be extremely useful to you, and it's a recipe for uh, being happy in the work that you'll be doing. All right. Also, last point here. This is still pretty much in your mind, right? So you're just making explicit the things that are in your mind. As you go through the process of looking for jobs, my suggestion is for you to make this a continuous process of. So you look at what companies are offering. So for example, salary, which is a pretty obvious one. So let's say you have a really high expectation for salary. And as you look for jobs, as you go through the process, you'll learn what companies are willing to pay, right? So you see, okay, companies in this country are willing to pay this much, companies in that country are willing to pay that much. But wait a minute, do I want to work remotely? I might have a higher salary, but I might also have to work remotely. Is that something that I want? So my point is make this integration and making this achieving this coherence between who you are, what you believe, and what you are doing a continuous process. All right, I hope that makes sense. All right, so now the easy part: just build your CV, take the puzzle pieces, and build it. Make sure you add the testimonials, the language fluencies, and the tech stack. Of course, this is going to be important. A very important point here: make sure when you write these things out, make sure you do them. So let me explain it this way. Some companies receive tens or hundreds of CVs. The interviewers or the hiring managers, they're not able to look at all CVs one by one. So what they actually do is they put those CVs in a database and they search for keywords. So knowing this, make sure you add the right keywords in your CV, especially in that sixth point there for the tech stack, right? The languages, the frameworks, the tooling. Also, as you go through the process of looking for jobs, make sure that if you see that a skill, if you find a skill or a tool or framework or a language that's required or that's mentioned in a job posting, and you go like, oh wait, I know this, but I actually don't have this in my CV, update it, right? Because they might search for that keyword, right? So if you know, it doesn't really matter if you're not super fluent in it, as long as if you used it at least a little bit, put it there, right? Because it's a keyword that can now be searchable, and they might find your CV through that. All right, so this is pretty standard. There's a lot of templates online as well. One of the websites you can use is canva.com. You can find really nice templates for CVs and put all of this information there. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about how job seeking really works, right? Because there are some dysfunctional beliefs that I'd like to help you guys overcome if you do have them. So the first thing to understand is that job descriptions are actually typically not written by people who fully understand the job, right? They are usually written by someone who is hired to hire other people. And usually they have some understanding of the job, but they don't have a full understanding of the job. And there's a point I want to make in a few slides that is important to this. So keep this in mind. Keep in mind that usually job descriptions are not written by someone who fully understands the job. So this is actually taken. So let's go through some actual job descriptions and let's analyze them a little bit, just so you understand a few points here. And I just want to say that these examples were taken by a book or from a book called Designing Your Life. This is a book written by Bill Burnett. From He's a executive design teacher, if I'm not mistaken, from Stanford. So smart dude who wrote a book called Designing Your Life, which I recommend, by the way. So let's go through some actual job descriptions pulled from the internet and let's analyze them a little bit. So good written verbal communication skills, strong analytical skills, excellent business planning and reporting skills, highly motivated and creative, demonstrated ability to juggle competing priorities and move quickly, strong initiative, bias for action, and a meticulously high attention to detail, innovative and market savvy, a passion for customers. All right, cool. But what's the problem with this description? This is super generic. This is not even a job description, right? This is attributes of any good employee, right? So the point here is if you read job descriptions like this, um, they don't fret too much because this is it just means that they're generic. They're not telling you a lot about the job, right? And this happens precisely because the job description is not written by someone who fully understands the job. So, if you read these kinds of things, you know that this is not the part of the job description that is going to interest you. So, okay, fine, let's move on. Some other job descriptions that pertain a little bit more to experience, and this is very common, unfortunately. So a bachelor's, master's, or PhD with 10 years experience doing exactly what we do in our company, 5 to 10 years of experience with some obscure legacy software program that we still use, then 3 to 5 years of experience with some other obscure job specific task that only people who work here know how to do. Again, if you read these kinds of descriptions, don't tell yourself, oh, okay, this is not for me. Because this does not fit reality. Unfortunately, many job descriptions are written like this, but it's just because they're written by someone who doesn't understand the job well enough. And this happens because they are just modeling whoever left the company and whose job you're going to now fulfill, right? So if that person had 10 years of experience doing exactly what they do in the company, then hopefully they want to replace that person, right? But if you do read this, please don't fret. Don't say to yourself, okay, this is not for me, and move on. If the position is important to you, still apply, okay? Because you have this understanding that this is not realistic in any way. Okay, last one. Um, and this is not, yeah, okay, let me read it and then I'll make some comments. So this role is not for the faint of heart, and only those with a proven and successful track record should apply. Looking for superheroes with the ability to produce ridiculous amounts of work on ludicrously, I can't even read that word, ludicrously tight deadlines. On top of your ability to create elegant and inspiring solutions, you are insightful and persuasive when analyzing and discussing strategies with colleagues. So the first two, be careful with these kinds of descriptions, because what they actually mean is that they have unhealthily high expectations for the person that they're trying to hire. So what usually happens is there was an employee in the company, that employee left, um, and the hiring manager or whoever is in charge for filling up that position thinks, okay, I liked that person, but um, he or she had um, some issues that we would like to not have in the next person who's going to do the job. So this is the superhero syndrome, right? They want to try and put someone in the new position or in the old position that is as good as the previous one, but better. And this means that they have unhealthily high expectations. So if you read the first two, something like the first two, be aware that this might be the wrong company for you. The last one, the third one, this is just wishful thinking, right? They're just looking for someone who's smart and can create elegant and inspiring solutions. This doesn't really say much. With these ones, it's the same with the previous slides. Don't fret, just apply anyway, and then try and be a little bit more, try and find out more about the position, because this is not really telling you anything useful. All right, so lessons to take away from this. So the first thing is fit in before you stand out. I think this is very important, right? So try and write in your CV pretty much in the same words, because they will be searched. It, most likely they will go through to a database and they will be searched for with keywords. So make sure you write your CV using the same words and keywords. If you find a specific skill that is posted or required, like I said before, make sure you add it to your CV, because then you have this process of refinement, and then focus your CV on the job as described. If you see that you read 10 job postings and they all phrase things the same way in terms of communication or language or tech skills or whatever, phrase it the same way in your CV as well, because the likelihood of you being found increases like that. And lastly, something important to understand here is that there's a very strong bias towards false negatives and against false positives, because it's very expensive for a company to do a bad hire. The point here is, if it's very expensive for a company to do a bad hire, then companies are not afraid of um, finding the right person, and then at the least sign of trouble, which is not even a sign of trouble. It's like, it's their perception of a sign of trouble, they immediately discard that person as a potential candidate. This is not them being mean in any way. It's just the nature of the industry. It's very expensive to do a bad hire, because the company will be paying a salary to someone who will not do the job. So let's say a company makes a bad hire, and then let's say 6 months later has to fire that person. So what happened? 6 months of salary, right, that the company lost, 6 months of time that the company lost, and the job is still not done. So there's a very strong bias towards false negatives, right? So just keep this in mind. Don't take it personally if you get a lot of rejections. It's just the nature of the that comes from it's the nature of job seeking, that comes from the fact that it's very expensive for companies to do a bad hire. So they don't shy away from rejecting candidates, especially if it's a company that has many CVs, right? Um, all right, so good lessons here to learn. So let's talk a little bit about dysfunctional beliefs and then reframes. I think there are very important points here. So dysfunctional belief, you should focus on your need to find a job. Helpful reframe, you should focus on the hiring manager's need to find the right person. I think this is very important to understand, because when your focus is not on your need to find a job, but on the need of the hiring manager to find the right person, then your mindset will change from one of I need this to one of curiosity. Like, help me understand what you need, help me understand the job, and help me understand if I would be able to do it. And when you switch the mindset to this new one from one to the other, the automatically whoever is interviewing you, whoever is connecting with you, will go like, this might be an interesting person. He's actually curious to know if, how this actually works. He's asking questions, but not questions in a demanding way, questions in a curious way. He's genuinely interested. And I think that's very helpful. And it helps tremendously with that negative bias we just saw. Another dysfunctional belief and useful reframe. I'm looking for a job to I'm looking for a number of job offers. Again, this helps you get into that mindset of being curious, of asking questions, not just to the companies you are considering, but to your whole network, to your friends and family and colleagues about, hey, do you know any companies looking to hire? I'm looking, for interesting offers. I'm looking for companies who are who might be interested in using the skills that I have. So I think that mindset, that shift, subtle but very powerful. All right, two more, and then we'll move on. So the internet is the be all and end all when it comes to looking for a job. Uh, this is a dysfunctional belief. This leads to a lot of frustration with a side dish of demoralization. Better reframe. The internet holds many great opportunities, but so does the other World Wide Web, networking, offline, right? Please don't just stay on the internet. Go offline because that's where work happens, right? Most of the times. Um, well, I guess if you work remotely, that's not entirely true. But my point is, you can find a lot of opportunities offline, right? And I think that's a very useful reframe. And I've seen this happen before where people just stay online and they get stuck. And there's this sea of opportunities offline. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this of how to find work offline, right? But there's a sea of opportunity there. And I just want you to be aware of that. All right, last one. Networking is just hustling people. It's slime. Much better reframe. Networking is just asking for directions and advice, right? It's just asking your colleagues and your friends about, who might be interested in these skills, or if you're a little bit more open-minded, just why not companies looking to hire in general, right? And maybe you'll connect someone to that company or someone to someone else, and then that person remembers you, and puts you in contact with someone else. So just being a generally kind person helps in this way as well, but only if you do actually do networking, only if you go offline. All right. So with all of that in mind, this is what I suggest. This is the sequence I suggest you do. So you have a CV, right? The first thing I suggest you do is for you to use reverse recruiting platforms. Reverse recruiting platforms are platforms where you put you create your profile once, right? And then companies actually come to you, right? So you just upload your information once and then companies find you. The reason why I suggest for you to do this as the first step is because the amount of work that you have to do is extremely low. Once you have your CV, you just upload it, put some information, probably have to upload your picture, you put your name, put some information there, and then you're done. If there's a company that looks at your profile and loves it, they will contact you, right? So it's a very low energy thing to do. So I think I suggest that this be the first thing you do. And I'm going to talk about a few reverse recruiting platforms. actually, this network, Tech Jobs Fair, does have one, and we're going to talk about that. Second thing I suggest you do, offline networking, right? So look for events in around you. Look for meetups. Of course, like Jobs Fair is an obvious event to go to, right? Meetup.com is also a very interesting app where you can find a lot of network events related to your fields. Here in Lisbon, for example, we have so many events happening on Meetup for tech and crypto and web development, front end, back end, full stack. It's like we have so much going on. It's like it's hard not to find a job just on Meetup alone, right? And then of course use Google, right? Like events in in my city, right? Search for networking events in your city, and maybe you'll find other platforms that are specific to your city, and you might be able to find events there to go to, right? Then after you've explored that and there's no more events going on, let's say you went to an event yesterday, there's no events happening today, what do? Like if you still want to work on it, go to LinkedIn, right? Try and talk to people on LinkedIn, read about companies, see if they fulfill your requirements. Like, is this a company I would like to work in, right? And if so, just try contacting people through LinkedIn. It's very easy to do, right? Just send them a private message, leave a message on their board. So you can find a lot of opportunities on LinkedIn. And then lastly, recruiting platforms. So why do I say lastly? Because like most great jobs are not online, they're offline. That's why I suggest you go offline. But some are, right? So I think you should definitely use recruiting platforms, not the reverse ones, but like the ones where you actually have to apply, but they do take a little bit more work from you, right? So you have to, for every position, you have to read through the company's profile, check against the kinds of values that you have and the things you'd like to have in a company, and then if they fulfill your criteria, then you apply. So, but this takes more effort on your part, but it's of course something you can do. So this is my suggested sequence of things: reverse recruiting platforms, offline networking, LinkedIn networking, which is online, of course, and then recruiting platforms lastly. All right, so let's talk about a few of the reverse recruiting platforms. Of course, Hire Tech Talent. It's pretty obvious one. Definitely use that one. Just upload your CV and your profile once, companies will find you. And then of course, Honeypot is a very famous one as well. For recruiting platforms, you have Germany Startup Jobs. If you are in Germany and you're interested in working in a startup, perfect platform for you, right? Tech Job Wall is also one that this network offers you. So definitely use that one. Then Glassdoor, and then LinkedIn. Now LinkedIn here also has a feature for job seeking, right? So on your profile in LinkedIn, there's a feature there where you can say, yes, I'm open to recruiters contacting me for this and that position. So actually LinkedIn serves as a recruiting platform. So definitely use LinkedIn for both recruitment, but also for networking. All right. Lastly, and this is the last step of the whole funnel, so to speak, is okay, you're getting offers, you're finding out more about that company, but for sure you will have technical interviews, right? This is absolutely going to happen. But if you're somewhat not comfortable, you should definitely practice these interviews. And my suggestion is start by friends and colleagues. If they're looking for a job as well, you can ask them questions as if you were an interviewer, and what kinds of things, like when you if you pretend to be an interviewer, you will get into the shoes of an interviewer, and it's like, and you will think, okay, if I'm an interviewer recruiting, let's say for a front-end position with React, what kind of questions would I ask, right? And then that helps you understand what kind of questions you will be asked, right? And then you can practice this with friends and colleagues if they're also looking for a job. And if they're not looking for a job, you can ask them as well. Why not? If they know about tech. And then trade, reverse. Have them be the interviewer, pretend to be the interviewer, and you the interviewee. Something else you can do is find interview mock practices on YouTube. There's plenty of mock practices. I just have a simple example here, which is a beginner React JS coding interview. This is actually a link. Let me see if I can. Wait, did I go? Can I want to copy this link so you guys can view it. So edit. Let me see if I can go to the platform here and put this in the comments. I can't seem to put this in the comments, but let me just put this here. And you might be familiar with Ben Awad. Really, really interesting dude who knows a lot about front-end development, or full stack really. And this is a very interesting interview he did with Clement. So this is a beginner React JS coding interview, and then he has two follow-ups. He has an intermediate one and an advanced one. And this actually is good practice, just looking at these interviews, because you will see almost exactly what you will be going through when you'll be doing your own. All right, let's jump back into the slides here. All right, then you can also use mentorship platforms. One of my favorite ones is Mentor Cruise. I'm actually there as a mentor. You can use these platforms. Of course, these are paid options, right? So you pay a mentor to help you practice the technical aspect of your job, and also, if you require, to practice interviews so that you can nail it. And then, of course, you can practice with me. I do this as well. I train software developers in this. All right, so this pretty much concludes my presentation. I hope this was clear. I hope it was useful. I'm just gonna close the presentation and take a look at the comments, and please, guys, feel free to ask me whatever you want. If there's something that was not clear, absolutely ask for it. So let me stop sharing now and take a look at the comments here.
Yeah, and I would like to add, like, it was very really informative presentation, Andre, and especially like I was listening very patiently, and especially like the 2 points I would like to highlight here, which I genuinely like believe like that would be really useful. The first point is you have mentioned in the building your CV slide, right, about the LinkedIn profile optimization, and nowadays I think like as a job seekers we don't have to apply CV, right, to companies. Maybe like if we like actual manner with the keywords that we have mentioned, and we do some profile optimization on of our LinkedIn profile only, then I think, and if we can share our link of the LinkedIn profile to companies, then I think that would be pretty much helpful, right? So it's also like as a employer, we also see as a you are like we are in tech community, right, and especially
Yeah,
like we would like to see how you have built up your profile, right? And if you are
yeah,
not build up your profile very in effective manner, then definitely there is no way to be in a tech community, right? So
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it's also very important point that we need to look into it. And the second point that you have mentioned about the maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, about the everything in job description cannot be matched everything, right? So maybe
No,
as an employer they have written like 10 to 12 or 15 points, right? So as a job seekers we try to figure out, okay, this particular thing is not matching with my profile, okay, this particular thing is not matching. So what do you think, like everything should be matched, or like how it is?
no. So the point is not to match the entire phrases, but to match the keywords. So if you see that, for example, a very common example, If you find 10 job descriptions and they don't write React, they write React.js, don't write React, write React.js. Even
Yes.
better, write both. Have a little section in your CV that says keywords, and then you write React, comma, React.js, comma, Vue, comma, Vue.js, comma, because there's many
Mhm.
ways of writing the same thing, and it's totally okay for you to have a keyword section as well. I mean, if it
Mhm.
makes sense for your particular case, and to have that there. So the point here is not to match the entire phrases, because that's going to be impossible.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes.
the point here is to match the keywords that they will be searching for, right? I think that's the
Mhm.
important issue. Yeah.
And especially in the headline, because headline, you can see like in LinkedIn profile headline, right after below your name, so there would be a headline, right? So
Yeah,
headline generally, first of all, when anyone visit to your profile, they at first they look, okay, what you have written in your headline.
that's a
So
very good point. Yeah, that's a
yeah.
very good point. I think next time I'll probably dig a little bit deeper into the social network aspect of all of it, like your LinkedIn, your GitHub, your
Hmm.
indie hackers account, if you do have one, your Medium account, if you have one, your YouTube, you know, those kinds of networks. I think that's also a really good point. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you for that suggestion, Sargon. I think that's actually a really
Yeah.
important
Yes.
point that I
Yes.
missed. But yeah, absolutely. Um,
Okay, all right. So let's take a look at some questions from our viewer side as well.
Yeah, could you please
So,
do me a favor, Sargam? I don't see an option to write in the comments. I can only read them. Could you please share my email, Andre at
yes.
andrecasal.com, please? So, guys, if you have any questions that like if you want slides, if you want some information about me, please send me an email and I'll send you the that information back. So, for example, we have a question here. I arrived late. Can you please share the presentation? I absolutely can. Please just send me an email and I will send you the slides.
Okay, we
Do you
have
have
a
a
question from.
resume as a
Hmm.
model resume? If so, I really appreciate it. Um, I don't, but you can find many templates online. A good website to find templates is canva.com. You can find plenty of templates there. They're pretty standard, right? It's just like that take stock portion of the presentation just pretty much has everything you need for a good CV, and it has some extras that people usually don't put there, but I think they're very useful, like the testimonials and the language fluency, not just the languages you speak, but the actual fluency you have, because that's important. And then, of course, the same thing for the tech stack, right? The technologies and tools and frameworks you know how to use, but also how fluent you are in each of those. I think it's going to be very interesting.
Yes, and we have an important question from Rashmika, and
Hmm.
he's asking, "Hi, how can to apply for a new job from overseas?"
Thank you, Rita.
I think.
Yeah. So
uh,
how can you apply for a new job from overseas? Um, so if you're applying for a job overseas, um, I would I would suggest the best thing to do is to use platforms, right? So the reverse recruiting platforms. Definitely try LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and what was the other one I had there? Let me take a look.
We can include high tech talent also because over high tech talent
Yeah,
you already
exactly.
mentioned, yeah,
Higher tech
because
talent. Yes,
yes, in high
exactly.
tech talent, like it's also a reverse recruitment platform where you don't have to
Exactly.
apply. And the best thing here is like in higher tech talent, the companies from 16 countries, right? And
Yeah.
Budapest recently added, so like Bosch and some other companies also added NR3, and there are various companies, UNICEF, right? So they are also like hiring from higher tech talent. So yes, so maybe you can try higher tech talent, and like companies will apply to you. They are also like there are many companies I can see like they are hiring remote workers as well. So I think that would
Absolutely.
be
Yeah.
great.
So if you're overseas, then it's just more practical to use the internet than, because if you're going, usually when you go offline to networking events, you'll, for the most part, just find local companies who are looking to hire. And you can expand that quite a bit if you go to big events like Tech Jobs Fair or Web Summit, which is going to happen next week, by the way, here in Lisbon. And a lot of people actually do come. They do travel on purpose just to come to the event and to the network here. If you have that possibility, then you can find amazing opportunities. But if you don't have the opportunity to travel to these big events, then of course use online platforms, because it's going to be much easier for you. All right. So how to get fresher remote job if wanted to get an IT, being a non-tech graduate. Okay, so we have an interesting question here. If I understand the question correctly, how do I get the remote job in IT if I'm a non-tech graduate? So this is actually a really good question, because there's a few misconceptions regarding your educational background. Um, but before I answer the question, Sargam, could you? Oh, right. Okay, let me give you my email. Could you please share my email in the comments so people can contact me? So there's this misconception. Yeah, there's this misconception that whatever you studied in school is going to determine your career. This is not correct, guys. Not at all. This happens so often. You have just so you have an idea, um, 2/3, so that's 66% of the industry has people working in fields that are not related to what they studied in university. Keep this in mind. 2/3. And within the tech community specifically, it's like they always do tech interviews. It doesn't matter your educational background. It almost doesn't matter for almost all companies. Some companies are a little bit too traditional, still very traditional, and it's like, okay, if you don't have like a master's in software engineering, we're not going to hire you. But most companies, they don't care about that. They just care, like, do you know how to do the work? Awesome. You don't? Well, then of course
Yes.
we cannot hire you, and that's what matters. So if you know your stuff, and especially if you have a good CV that shows good accomplishments, like I've done this project, like here's the link for my GitHub profile where you can find some projects that I've done before. It's like I do front end, I do back end, I do full stack, whatever you do. Just show, don't tell, or better yet, tell but also show, and that's what matters. That's what companies are really looking for. They're looking for skill. They're not looking for validation from universities. So please don't stop yourself from applying to tech jobs if you don't have that background. But of course, learn the skills. I
Yep.
plan on
So
attending.
experience
Yeah,
is greater than your education.
exactly. Absolutely. Besides, like I attended a master's degree, in an integrated master's degree in electronics and telecommunications engineering. I do not work in electronics or telecommunications engineering. I work in software engineering. So, and most of what I
Yes.
know, like I'd say more than 90% of what I know was not learned at university. So university gave me about 10% of my current knowledge, if that much.
Mm-hmm.
So the tech world moves so fast that you just have to be a good learner and keep on learning. Okay, we have another
Correct.
question here. I plan on attending a tech boot camp for 6 weeks. I will be for sales engineering. It will be for sales engineering, but I have sales and a business development background. Okay. Should I make a resume that specializes only on the projects I've worked on in tech bootcamp so that I can start at a higher rate than entry level? Let me think about this. So I plan on taking tech boot camp. I'm not sure what sales engineering is. What's sales engineering? I've never heard that
Well,
term.
even yeah, I also don't. I also never heard that.
The engineering
Okay.
part of sales. I'm not sure what that is, but let me try and answer the question nonetheless. Should I make the question is, should I make a resume that specializes only on the projects I've worked on in the tech bootcamp so that I can start at a higher rate than entry level? Absolutely not. If you have experience in sales and business development, show it. Don't just show the projects you've worked on in the field. Show that you have all that background that you're leveraging for your new job. So I would say no. Don't make a resume that specializes only in the projects that you worked in the bootcamp. Show everything because that's valuable. What's okay? Sargam, please
Yes,
tell me
definitely.
and
So,
continue on, or we should stop.
yes, definitely. So we are also running out of time here. So,
Okay.
I mean, thank you so much, Andre, for sharing this once again, this informative presentation. And I
Absolutely.
hope these tips will help job seekers in finding really good job quickly and efficiently, right? So I think that's all for today, Andre. If you would like to add anything from your side, then definitely
Yes.
you can.
Yes. I hope it was useful. Thank you, Sargam and Tech Jobs Fair, for inviting me to do this talk. I hope this was useful to everyone. Guys, please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions. I will try and do my best to answer all your questions through email. You also have in the email, you have my website, which is andrecasal.com. Feel free to explore it. If you need training, I can also provide that. I can also help you go through the process of finding a job. I've done this for many software engineers and other professionals in the past, and also students.
Yeah.
So, guys, feel free to leverage my help. I'll do my best to help you guys grow and find the right jobs. Thank you,
Yep.
everyone.
So
Thank you,
thank
Sargam.
you. Thank you everyone for joining us today. So that's the end of the session here, and see you all in our next session. Till then, have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, guys. Bye bye.